Welcome to another edition of OnPrem Pros. And today we're going to be talking about a customer experience as they explored VMware's vSAN versus Dell PowerStore. And actually, and other solutions also. So I shouldn't just say those, but those are the two key ones we're going to be talking about today. And joining me on this journey, we have two of the solution architects with xByte Technologies. We have Tyler Young, Josh Moss. Guys, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. What's going on?
All right, and so this customer, I'll kind of set up a little of the background, and we'll get into some specifics. But they're a global food manufacturer, and they're currently running VMware's vSAN. It was up for renewal, and we've talked about in other podcasts, and we've gone into the details, and the prices have changed recently with the recent acquisition. So they're exploring options. And they know that the higher end packages of VMware they have vSAN. You're paying per terabyte for vSAN. If you want to explore any of that licensing information, by the way, guys, we have another great video of VMware licensing, which you can take a look at. But this customer was exploring their options because they're like, hey, my pricing is going up. What else is out there? And we were one of the vendors, and actually the one chosen representing Dell, and our solution ended up being Dell PowerStore. But Josh, why don't you give us a little bit more background on some more details on this customer and kind of other vendors that were in the opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, as you mentioned, the customer came to us and was they're facing a VMware renewal. This is a story we hear several times a week, if not more, about customers. The renewals coming up, they need to look and see what the costs are going to be. And like you mentioned, this particular customer was using vSAN or still is using vSAN today. So they wanted to see, what the cost would look like for, just a straight renewal versus, moving back to a separate SAN or NAS storage device. So we kind of went through the gamut of the various options that Dell has in their portfolio for storage devices, and ended up landing on PowerStore. And there were also other vendors that we were in competition with, the IBMs and the HPEs out there. But yeah, lots of different options that you can, explore to kind of help curb those licensing increase costs.
Now, for this customer, they were not entertaining any other hypervisor. Can
Yep.
you go into some of the details about why, like your traditional like Nutanixes of the world, we didn't see them in this. No Ceph. Why just VMware solutions?
I think the main factor is familiarity. Second main factor would have been the time and the man hours and money to the business that would have taken to convert from one hypervisor to another. And built into that is having to retrain technical staff. That's no small feat either.
So this customer looked at those options and they was like, hey, look, we just know VMware so well that we only want solutions that do that. Tyler, why don't you go into our ultimate solution of PowerStore and maybe even go into if there are other options that we considered in the Dell portfolio before coming to PowerStore.
Absolutely. So, like Josh mentioned, right, Dell does have a pretty vast portfolio of the mid-range storage, and that's something where we went across all the options, right? Because we never want to just out the gate assume what the best solution is for the customer. We need to see what the workload entails, what performance metrics they're currently looking at, and what's really going to be that best fit, not only from a performance standpoint, but also from a growth and management standpoint as well. So with that, we went through a couple of the different options, ended up on PowerStore. PowerStore in itself does have it's currently in its second gen of a lot of models, and we went through some of the 2 or 3 different models that we thought would kind of be a good fit, right? A good, better, best, and just kind of went through some of the differences as far as performance, feature sets, etc. And ended up coming to conclusion on a PowerStore 1200T. Essentially, that is the second, or that's really the first PowerStore model that is above the entry level. So essentially, what it allows you to do is have 25 total drive bays, 4 of which are allocated for NVRAM drives. 2 of them specifically can be used for this model, but anyway, and then you have 21 that are just pure NVMe drives right in the front, hot swappable. So we went with that. But what's nice about that, and what the customer truly appreciated, was the data reduction rates that you get with that. So more often than not, right, if the customer says, I need, just be simple, 100 terabytes of usable capacity, you're actually quoting out 100 terabytes of usable capacity. With PowerStore, as long as your data meets the parameters that Dell sets, Dell actually offers a data reduction guarantee saying, hey, we're going to take 1 terabyte of usable capacity, and instead of making just 1 terabyte, we're going to guarantee that our compression and our inline dedupe rates are so great that that 1 terabyte usable becomes 5 terabytes effective or greater. And so with that, we were actually able to size a much smaller solution for him, but because of data reduction rates, he was able to again take advantage of that and really be cost efficient there on that and still
Now, now, why not? You mentioned this is the second tier of the Power Store, and
Mhm.
either you or Josh can answer this.
Yeah.
Why did he eliminate the bottom tier, or why
Mhm.
not? Is there a tier above that he considered also that
Yeah.
he said he didn't want that one? So kind of how did we land on this specific version of Power Store?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 500T is that entry level PowerStore model, right? It can output excellent performance, right? There's not really a lot of differences between that and the higher models, other than the fact that one, instead of having 4 drive bays in the front allocated towards NVRAM, all 25 drives in the front are just purely for NVMe SSDs. So it's just pure for capacity. And then another main difference there too is part of Dell's future proof program. Essentially, Dell makes it so that they design PowerStore so that you can essentially start in one model, and if your business outgrows the current performance, right, it's able to scale with you, not just by adding more drives or more capacity, but actually scale with you and maybe even jump up to the next model. So, for instance, the 500T is not, it's a different chassis. So essentially, if you go with the 500T, that's what it's always going to be. But if you go with the 1200T or above, you can essentially, start at a 1200T and then later down the road jump up to a 3200T or a 9200T, right? And the higher you go in the numbers, right, the more powerful the systems are. So essentially, it allows them to kind of grow as needed. So that's really what kind of settled into the 1200T was he wanted, you know, the capabilities to grow into a higher gen model, or I'm sorry, higher performing model if needed. And at the same time, too, he did look at potentially starting with a higher model, but he really didn't even need NVMe performance at all. This is something that he's currently running on, SSDs today, or SAS SSDs to be exact today. So he really didn't need NVMe performance, but because of the price point of PowerStore and especially taking advantage of the data reduction rates, it just made sense. So again, he didn't want to kind of go into the entry level model because he wanted that flexibility to be able to scale, to a higher model. But he also didn't want to start at a higher model because he thought that was a bit overkill on the performance side. So that's kind of where he started out there. But one thing I do want to call out is no matter what model you start out today, what really makes PowerStore, one of the many reasons that makes it pretty unique, is that you can actually cluster these systems together, right? So, you often hear about storage arrays that you can, of course, right, daisy chain additional expansion enclosures to it to add capacity, and you're scaling up, but you're not really adding additional performance other than just drives. What PowerStore allows you to do, no matter what model you start at, you can actually cluster up to 4 of these models, and you can mix and match. So whether he had a entry level 500T, PowerStore, or a 1200T or 9200T, or even a previous gen, a first gen PowerStore and a current gen, you can cluster them together, and essentially, the system will, or the appliance rather, will auto balance the workload between, the appliances to essentially, put your data in the right place at the right time, and essentially make sure you're getting the performance of multiple appliances.
Nice. So the Power Store looks like it sounds like it has a lot of great features. What about the Dell line Power Store that set it apart from the competitors in this? So I know you guys had mentioned. I think there was I don't necessarily want to call out, but I think there was a solution from a company that starts with an I, another solution from a company that starts with an H. So what about the Dell beat out the H and the I solutions?
Yeah. Moss, do you want to start with this, or want me to start?
Yeah, I could start. First and foremost, Dell is one of the premier vendors out there. Their hardware and support to back it is definitely unmatched. A lot of engineering and development time goes into the platform itself. Just for starters, that's definitely a major differentiator.
Yeah, another one too is just just goes down to the price point, honestly, and not only just pure price point, right? Because a lot of times you hear, oh, the cheaper the solution, right, the worse it is. That's not necessarily the case, especially here when we're talking, enterprise grade storage. Again, I mentioned earlier the data reduction rates that we're able to take advantage of, right? There's competitors out there who say, hey, it can do this, but they don't put their money where their mouth is. The fact that Dell says, hey, not only are we saying that this could do a 5-to-1 data reduction, ratio, and you're getting, 5 terabytes and, for your, every 1 terabyte, right? We're actually going to guarantee that. So if, again, if, you have that data in there and it's not meeting those standards, right, we're going to actually send you those drives. And if you're, maybe your system's already full and to get more drives, you need an expansion closure as well. We'll even throw an expansion closure to attach to it as well to, get you that additional storage if we're not meeting that 5-to-1 data reduction that we promised. So other customers, or I'm sorry, other competitors say that they can do that, but anybody can say a number, right? It's another thing to really put your money where your mouth is. And honestly, that just, amongst other things such as just easily manageable, simple to deploy. I mean,
So
there's a lot
for this customer, was that the primary piece, is the data reduction?
that was that definitely played into it, because again, that was allowed us to essentially get all the storage that the customer needed at such a low price point. But again, we also showed him how it feels to manage one of these array or appliances rather, and we walked him through it. We gave him remote access to one, and he really got to play with it. He's like, wow, right, this really does separate itself from other things that I've managed in the past. So yeah, Dell really did outdo themselves with this one in particular. So
That's great that he was able to play with them. That does make it a lot of difference. The
yeah,
fact that you can actually get in there and see it for yourself, so you're not kind of surprised at things.
exactly. And that's something, just another thing that I think just goes to show just how far Dell is really, pushing the boundary when it comes to not only just, enterprise servers, but also storages. I mean, PowerStore has only been out for less than 4 years. So it actually released on Star Wars Day back in 2020. So, May the 4th be with you, right?
Yep.
And since that, I mean, it's already in over 80% of Fortune 500 companies' data,
Wow.
data center. So, I mean, that's huge for something to be out for that little of time. And so many large top tier countries or companies across the globe have, adopted this and said, hey, we trust this with our, mission critical data. I mean, that's, something that really,
That'd be a reason right there for a customer to do it. Like, look, you don't always want a bandwagon, but if all these guys are using it,
yeah.
there's got to be something there. So now the customer's using vSAN currently, and they're moving to the 3-2-1 architecture, or the 3-tier architecture, I should say. Josh, how easy is it to make that transition? I mean, is it a big lift for these guys? Is there downtime involved? What's involved in that transition?
Yeah, luckily, since the hypervisor is staying the same, it's as simple as getting the PowerStore configured on the network and being able to map the storage to the existing cluster. And then you just perform a simple storage migration from there.
So it sounds like it's easy to make that. So if other customers are looking and saying, "Hey, look, I have vSAN right now. I'm looking at options because of reducing costs and stuff," then this is easy to make a move. And then let's say that something changes in their world, and the landscape changes or something, or the licensing changes, and they're now on it with a storage array. Can they go back to vSAN, or can they use it? Can they run it at the same time later on? Or are they kind of stuck in this storage architecture? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, luckily, as pricey as VMware can be, it is very flexible in how you can configure it. You can move back and forth between using vSAN as your primary storage, hardware compatibility provided, or using an external SAN. Use them both at the same time. Do a little mix and match.
Yeah, and just to add on to that too, I mean, Dell does make it pretty easy to manage everything as well, not just from a Dell perspective, but also VMware. I mean, there's a lot of integrations out there on the server level, storage level, that you can essentially do a lot of your VMware day-to-days, through your Dell interfaces and vice versa. So, the management piece is there too. And that played a big role in this as well. I mean, all the different integrations with VMware as well. For instance, right, it supports vVols, which is essentially a VMware thing as well. So again, there's a lot out there with the PowerStore. You talked about change, and it made me think about a lot of better features, better performance has come with PowerStore over the years for customers without even buying anything additional. What I mean by that is just simply through software updates. And Dell pushes out their PowerStore OS updates pretty frequently. This latest large update, they announced it as PowerStore Prime back in May at Dell Tech World. And it was essentially the 4.0 release of the operating system. And with that, customers were seeing 20% more storage efficiency. So that went from their previous 4-to-1 data reduction guarantee. Now it's up to 5-to-1. Customers seeing improved performance as well. And that's again, they don't have to pay for extra for that operating system or licensing or anything like that. That's all inclusive. They don't have to pay to apply that new update, right? That's just something that they woke up one day, updated the system, like, oh wow, I'm getting more efficient system. And again, that all just kind of goes into the seamlessness of what Dell's really trying to build into their appliances moving forward. So
Nice. All right. Well, if anyone out there is looking at options, VMware, vSAN, Dell, PowerStore, any of those options out there, any HCI or or storage architectures, then please contact xByte. We are your vendor who can help you out with that. And Tyler, Josh, thank you very much for joining us this week. And everyone, have a great time, and we'll talk to you on the next OnPrem Pros. Thank you guys very much.
thanks, everyone.
Yeah.